everybody. Mike Shope with Matt Schauf and Adam Krautwurst. Welcome to our Draft Sharks pod here in Rochester today. I'll get better. I'll improve.
I think you probably said shock because we've got an empty chair. There's no Jared Smollett today.
No
That's
Jared.
what makes it shock instead of sharks.
Yeah, that's too bad. Jared is not well enough to join us today, but hopefully he improves and we'll see him next week. We're going to talk about a lot of the news. I mean, we're definitely into all of it here. Mid-August, preseason well underway, and that key ability, Matt, to differentiate between what matters and what doesn't here this time of year. I mean, fantasy players are all trying to figure out these questions.
Yeah, this is why we set that baseline for the projections, why we get them on the site so we have a starting point, and then we digest all this stuff, the camp buzz, the preseason performances, the injuries, adjust from there. And, this is where experience really comes in, Adam. We talk about gut feelings, we talk about vibes, but all that stuff is really just experience driving stuff. So you can figure out when there's a story on somebody, whether it's something to listen to or whether it's something to let other people overreact to.
Yeah, and there's experience when it comes to multiple things. Experience in an actual draft room, right, of what to do when players get taken. Like I was just sniped on Wan'Dale Robinson here in my best ball draft, but I'll figure it out. But also too, trying to figure out what coach speak, what things to factor in. Some players we want to see them run with the first team. Some players, if they don't run with the first team, it doesn't matter during preseason. Other players, if they do run with the first team, it does matter. So it's trying to decipher each situation, and there's not a blanket statement for all of it. So you kind of got to pick through the pieces, and that's the fun of it. And that's where I think there's where some skill can become involved.
So let me try. It's Draft Sharks, right?
Draft Sharks, yes.
Is saying it wrong? I'm doing great. I got the name wrong. This is after not thanking Draft Sharks at the Scott Fishbowl live event, our feature sponsor. So, I'm lucky to be invited back here. We do also want to thank RockVox Recording and Production of Rochester, New York, where we're podcasting from today. Professional podcast, voiceover, and live stream studios and production services. Check them out at RockVox, RockVox.com. Well, I think I would probably go with Antonio Gibson being the lead story right now in fantasy football, or from the preseason games. Didn't end there. Now he's on the punt team. Man, you're good to go on what it means that the starting running back's on special teams, right? You're going to tell us? Where are we at on Gibson?
I mean, we got something more specific. It wasn't just special teams. He's working on the punt coverage unit. That's certainly not a positive. If you're like, all right, starting running back, go out there and tackle people who are trying to return a punt. And he was getting some second team work. Now, this might be a punishment kind of thing as opposed to a demotion, because of course he had the fumble in the preseason game. It could just be coaches saying, dude, you've got to get this ironed out, or we have other players who can play in your spot. Even if it's just a warning, though, that's not a good thing to have right now. And Ron Rivera said there's always competition at these positions. And I think we all know that if Washington has a bad year this year, Ron Rivera's job could be on the line. So this is a negative development for Antonio Gibson, who was already a bad vibes player for me in the range of the draft where he's going. I'm probably not drafting him unless he gets to like round 7 at this point, at least.
Well, I have good news. I just took him at the 9-2 in a main event yesterday, or two nights ago. So I was just going to ask, can a player go from bad vibes to good vibes just based on ADP?
He should be able to. Now, I mean, there are players that I still might not take, and it really depends on what I have and what I need at that point. And even if Antonio Gibson's there at late round 8, if I'm sitting there with 3 running backs and I really want a receiver that's there, I'm like, I'm fine. I mean, Antonio Gibson's a fine pick here, but I'm fine with passing on him as well.
Yeah, on last week's show, you made that point how vibes have to be malleable. They have to change. I mean, they have to be able to be changed. And so Gibson is interesting right now. Matt, you and I have interacted on him before because I was in an underdog draft 3 weeks ago, maybe, and I picked him at 99 overall, and you responded to my tweet like, that's how you do it. I mean, if you're going to take Antonio Gibson, that's where you do it. According to Fantasy Mojo, in terms of the main event, Adam, that's the max. I mean, pick 98, 902. Yeah. You were in that draft. 7.5 is the average, but that's going to fall.
Yeah.
Do we want to switch? I don't want to switch places, Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson, though. Like, I'm a long way from doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people are are doing that, or have talked about doing it. Maybe this has only happened yesterday with the punt team. And, we talked about this in the podcast last night. And it's, when it comes to stuff like this, it's people dealing with other people, right? So we don't know. He might have rolled his eyes at a coach and he sent him over to the punt team. But later on, he came back. I think he was doing walkthrough with the ones or the other twos. So,
right.
I'm going to buy him in the 9th round. I could see any path to any scenario how you want to draft this. You want to fade all the running backs in Washington? Fine. You want to take Brian Robinson in the 11th or 12th and have him be the only one you take there? Fine. You want to take Gibson in the 9th? If he falls only to the 9th round, perfect. Fine. You want to draft 2 of them and wait for one of them. You want to go Robinson, J.D. McKissick. Awesome. I could see all of those things working. I could see all those things not working. You just have to be prepared to, and in either way, you're not spending much draft capital on any of the situations that I just named. So just be prepared to be wrong on the situation and be prepared to cut these guys if you have to. But Gibson in the 9th round, he fits that, archetype of running back in there where you're taking him,
box check.
You're taking him with other running backs in that range where you're taking him with handcuff running backs in there. You're taking him with guys that don't even have the type of upside that he has. So I'm still okay taking him. I'm okay. I'm not targeting him. You don't have to buy the dip, but just keep an eye on your draft. And a guy like Brian Robinson, I don't want him as like my RB6 in like a heavy RB build, because even if he hits, now he's sitting deep on your bench of other good running backs. You want Brian Robinson as like your RB4 maybe in like a hero or 0 RB build, where if he is the guy, now you can start him along with a bunch of awesome receivers, a tight end, and a quarterback.
Adam, do you know how many times you're going to be saying archetype today? Because I think people have started doing shots when you
That's
bring it
right.
up. And I want to warn people whether they should be listening to this pod at night as opposed to too early in the day.
What a great drinking game. I started saying it like joking and kind of making fun of it. Now I absolutely love saying it.
You're like a guy who just says bro to be funny, and all of a sudden you actually start calling people bro.
That's right.
I'm trying to find some other word for it, but there isn't a good one. You have to explain it usually what you mean. A model maybe is good enough.
I will say, if your takeaway here is to take Brian Robinson in the single-digit rounds, I think that's a mistake. I think you are then turning him into Trey Sermon from last year, because that's not Brian Robinson's place.
Cut to the heart of me.
Washington is tough to take. We talked about this last night too. I didn't like how the offensive coordinator sounded about the Gibson fumbles, like how serious he was about it. And yeah, I know turnovers are the biggest thing to determine the outcome of football games, but just think that's so not optimal when your coaches are fixated on fumbles. He did have 6 last year. Like if guys can have more of a penchant for it than other guys, but man, I want my best talent on the field. He's easily it, I think, of the 3 guys in Washington. I think he's easily it, but even his whole career, we're arguing about whether he plays enough.
Even if you're taking some away, you can't take everything away. That would be the wrong move. If you give him less work, that's fine. Maybe you can maximize him. And I think that the NFL in general, these older coaches have probably some mental block on this whole fumble issue. It's been a thing for Bill Belichick forever. And
yes.
I always watch it. I'm like, does it seriously make sense to take your best player out just because he fumbled? Like, it's going to happen a few times during the year, no matter how much he tiki barbers it.
All right, let's move on. Josh Jacobs. So the Raiders are 2 preseason games in, having played in the Hall of Fame game against Jacksonville. Jacobs, who we talked about last week, also, he gets the rest status here with Carr, Adams, Renfro in game 2. Adam, is it relevant?
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where you want to see him not playing with the ones after he came out, because here's the funny thing. Like, you can't knock him for being in the game a bunch week 1 in the preseason and then be like, oh, he's not playing week 2. So I think, again, we said this last week, sometimes coaches just want to see, it's a new coaching staff. They want to see Josh Jacobs in live action. Great. They saw it the first week in preseason, whatever. Now he sits with the rest of the starters. So I think Josh Jacobs is the clear starter there. People are really down on him. He's another one, man. If he falls far enough, buy him. Again, you don't want to buy him as your RB4, but you want to buy him as maybe like an RB2 and a hero RB build, an RB2 and a 0 RB build, something like that. But yeah, it's fine. He's going to be their goal line back. He can catch passes. And people forget too, along with the Antonio Gibson discussion, is running backs get hurt all the time. So even if they came out today and said, this running back, Zamir White's the starting running back. Well, that Jacobs would drop a ton, but that doesn't mean Zamir White isn't going to get hurt. These guys are draftable at a certain point. And right now, Josh Jacobs is their workhorse. He may not get as much passing down work as we would like, but he's still worth it at a certain point.
It's similar to last year, I think, for me on Jacobs, where I'm not usually drafting him, but I respect it in that certain range. Probably won't get thrown the ball, like you said. Abdullah now is the name for that in Las Vegas, it seems to be. But, I would think he'd be the starter. And running back 24, Fantasy Mojo, Jacobs, there are scenarios where I would do it, but not many.
And it's important to keep range of outcomes in mind for all these guys because maybe he gets less receiving work, but is Amir Abdullah going to catch 60 passes? Is Kenyon Drake going to even make the regular season roster? Is Zamir White ever going to catch a single pass? So the range of outcomes for Josh Jacobs still, I think, includes him being a 3-down back. And just on this specific situation we mentioned last time, Josh McDaniels said after he played in the Hall of Fame game, I think running backs you need to see get hit in the preseason. Right. I think that we've got evidence now that he was telling the truth. As much evidence as we generally have of any Belichick disciple, but it seems like he was telling the truth, and it seems like Josh Jacobs is the lead back. So not a player I'm excited about, but definitely a guy that I'm drafting at cost at this point.
Not a great sounding offensive line, the Raiders, but it still is the AFC West. The situation is such that, Kansas City strangely also has these questions at running back, in that division. You want to be exposed. Somehow you want to have some exposure to those teams.
Yeah, even when you go to like the total points projected for all the games, the AFC West has a bunch of the shootouts between them are up at the highest point projected games of the season. Josh Jacobs is slipping into the 7th round of main event drafts. Like if you start with 3-4 receivers, an elite tight end, elite quarterback, or maybe one running back up top, he's absolutely fine in the 7th round. It's not sexy, you don't stop there, but I'm fine with him there based on your build.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders open with the Chargers. I was thinking about week 1. I mean, I'll admit we're pretty far into this, pretty deep into it. I'm looking at lineups, Adam.
No.
I'm tiptoeing into lineup mode.
Are you done with waivers? Hold on, you got to get waivers fab budget done first.
Waivers is the number one thing about this that feels the most like work.
Yeah.
Because that's for sure.
Drafting is fun. Lineups are fun.
Right.
Watching games is fun. Waivers.
Right.
Don't forget about waivers when you figure out how many teams you're drafting. All right. Treylon Burks. Arrow down from last week. I mean, still we're talking about backups. They're testing us on Burks, but I'm still fine. The other players on the team, the draft status, I'm choosing to ignore most of the reporting out of Tennessee when it comes to Burks, Matt.
This is where price is important. And if we were talking about Burks going in the 5th or 6th round, they would say, okay, we got to pump the brakes on this. He might not start in week 1. But if he's going in the 9th or the 10th, or this is the kind of thing that could actually help him be a better draft pick because you're still taking the modest risk at where you're drafting him. You're not going to have people chasing after him, and we're still looking at the opportunity around him. It's there. I mean, is Racey McMath going to be a starting wide receiver for them? Probably not. I can't.
It's an amazing name. That is an amazing
what a name.
So, and I mean, can anybody listening even name 3 other Titans wide receivers besides Robert Woods? So I mean, the opportunity is clearly there. I think the Titans are challenging Treylon Burks. I think that he's probably not worked as hard as they would like, coming along as quickly as they would like. But the reason that they would like is because they see the potential there and the opportunity is obvious.
They traded A.J. Brown for him.
Right.
There's no way, unless he's absolutely incompetent, unless he can't do anything, there's no way he's not on the field with the starting offense week 1. Like Matt said, we have an old school coach here, right? A guy who says, "Hey, coach, what do we do?" And he goes, "Go score." That's the type of coach we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, he's going to be on the field. He's a big-bodied, awesome receiver. And looking at it from the micro, I think they want him to run deep drags. They want him to run flies. They want him to run. They don't want him to be amazing day 1 on 8 different route combinations. I think what they're going to ask him to do is get open on the play action across the field, and he's going to be fine doing that. I'm going to be way overexposed to Treylon Burks, but like Matt said, in the 9th round, in the late 8th, not in the 7th. But and give him a couple weeks. He might get, maybe he starts off super slow and he gets dropped. Like, look to pick him up. All these rookie receivers, Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore, these guys popped in the second half last year. that's gonna be Treylon Burks.
Would you pick him over Woods?
Sorry, go on. Matt.
Well, I am not now, and I think currently I would take Robert Woods ahead of Treylon Burks, and I think that maybe it's a tiebreaker, but I think it looks like there's a better shot that Robert Woods gets the targets immediately, and so that I think then gives him trade value. I think, like Adam said, it might sound crazy right now, but if somebody drafts Treylon Burks in the 8th or 9th round, and then he doesn't start week 1. He's going to get dropped by some teams, especially in single leagues, because everybody's going to be charging after the guys who did show out in week 1. So he could get dropped. Robert Woods looks like he's on track to be the season opening target leader for this Tennessee team.
Yeah, and Robert Woods probably projects higher and better, but I think that Treylon Burks has that, big upside at the end of the season that you're looking for, especially in these tournaments. I think he's going to win out in the end. I would not suggest drafting both of them and playing that game because, again, it's a low pass volume offense. You definitely don't want to do that. But I'm just passing on Wood. I don't think I have any Woods. He's more of his just ceiling isn't high enough for me. He's kind of like Tyler Boyd in that kind of mold, but. So yeah, Treylon Burks for me is fine. We're around 9, late round 8.
As much sense as this argument has made, I mean, it's been the argument throughout the preseason. Don't worry about it. Hold on, but don't worry about it too much. Don't avoid him. What you don't get when he's playing with backups like this is you don't get any sort of chemistry reports. You don't get like Dotson, for instance, in Washington. And he played a lot in the preseason with Wentz, almost every play.
Every play, yep.
That they were on. Wentz was on the field, Dotson was on the field, and you get highlights. You just sort of have this sense, or even just like it's talked about, that they are working well together. And so of the rookies, I mean, there's not a lot of that I'm hearing right now. The Jets quarterback got hurt in terms of Garrett Wilson, maybe New Orleans with Olave. With certain teams, it's not the first, like with Green Bay, it's not the first receiver they picked where you're hearing that kind of buzz about Watson was hurt. But I don't have anything on Tannehill and Burks together. So just, maybe a little bit of caution is called for.
And I think that absence, too, can help the Robert Woods case, because I mentioned the season opening target leader, but there's also the chance that Treylon Burks just comes along slowly. He needs this year to develop, and we get a full season of Robert Woods as the clear number 1, maybe dominant number 1 target. And I think, we're talking about the range where Burks is going, taking away some of the risk. It also helps Robert Woods be, even if he's Jacoby Myers, that's fine in the round 9 range. And to look at a specific draft example, I was doing a draft on Sleeper this week. I saw Treylon Burks go at the 8-9 turn, so he went 8-12. I took Robert Woods at 9-05. I think fair prices for both of those. I like getting Woods after Burks in that range. What do you guys think about where those two are going? And Adam, would it be Burks over Woods every time for you just because of the ceiling argument?
Yeah, I don't. It's just Burks for me, so it's not even really over Woods. I just don't really want Woods.
Just let somebody else take him.
Yeah, I'll let somebody else take him. I really think they like Woods because he's like an amazing run blocker. He was for the Rams, and that's like one of his like traits. And obviously they want to run the ball there. So not that he won't get targets when he's out there, and that probably will keep him on the field more. But to me, it's just in that range. Give me a receiver that can really win me a league rather than like a low. Kind of a safe receiver.
Robert Woods is boring, but that's
sure.
a little.
Sure.
There's a little bit of an edge, I think, in the game if you sort of open your eyes to the guys who are boring.
It's a range where boring, pays off too, and it's where you tend to get Jarvis Landry over the past few years. By the way, I talked about the opening season target stuff, and I think Robert Woods is also, I talked about drafting on Sleeper, and I've got several drafts going on Sleeper right now, which is, easy to do. I'm out somewhere, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm up. I guess I can just go into the app real quick, make my selection. So I'm also looking forward to using Robert Woods early in their over-under competition, and that's a really easy contest to play on Sleeper. I believe it was new last season, but you pick at least 2 players, you then bet on the player props, their over-under on specific stats, and I think that Robert Woods could really be a good target for that early season reception prop. Nobody's going to expect much of him in that Titans offense. You get, 2.5 receptions, something like that. I think that's going to be an easy over early in the season, especially for a team that we don't expect to win too many games early in the season, not be ahead of teams, be passing plenty. And by the way, if you are going to play some over-unders on Sleeper, you go to sleeper.com/draftsharks right now, make your first deposit. You can automatically get it matched up to $100. So I'm going to be playing on there. I'm probably going to be playing some week 1 Robert Woods.
Yeah, that's a good point to get those guys that are kind of undervalued. Maybe in comparison, like if I'm obviously out on Woods, but in comparison to like what people think he's going to do week 1, if Burks doesn't play or if Burks doesn't do whatever, I mean, for sure, absolutely, stuff like that. I remember playing a bunch of over-unders a couple of years ago, even DFS, and being in on guys like, I'm a big Bills fan, so being in on guys that you like before the market catches up to it. I remember Tyrod Taylor being a guy that I was like, oh, well, no one's really high on Taylor. I'll pop him into a couple DFS lineups. So I think Robert Woods is a good example of that.
Former teammates.
That's right.
They'll be on the same field week 1. It's Giants at Tennessee. Giants looking for that first ever winning record for one day in 6 years or whatever it is. And 24-5, 25 points in that range is the projected total for Tennessee. 6 and 43.5. So, I like that. That's a week 1 number you gave, right? 2.5 catches?
Mm-hmm. That was made up. I didn't see it.
Oh, that was made up.
Yeah.
That's right.
I hope it's right.
I was going to say,
it is. I'm over.
It's an easy over for me.
I hope it's right. All right. Eno Benjamin, one more from the preseason. Played in the preseason opener. He's been a little buzzy, though. You've got Darrell Williams there in Arizona, who did not play in their preseason game. Ingram, 2 other guys there to pick from. We're all trying to figure out what Arizona will do after James Conner, and maybe even somebody cuts into James Conner. I kind of expect that a little bit with whether it's Benjamin or someone else, but I think if it were my team, I'd want to slow down on Conner a little bit. He was very efficient, great year, but with the injury history, I have a team there that's been out of the gate fast and then has fallen apart. And that's happened enough times for Kingsbury and the Cardinals, where if it were me overseeing that, I'd be like, all right, what are we going to do differently here so that we're not on fumes by Thanksgiving? And all right, what I'm going to do is take my best players and just manage their workload a little bit more. And of course, DeAndre Hopkins had that happen to me with a 6-game suspension. So I'm not expecting Conner to see maybe somewhere near the volume he had last year, but I'm thinking there's a dip.
And that's okay, right? Like most running backs, there's like 3 or 4 running backs in the league that have it all to themselves. Fine. Whatever keeps James Conner in the field more, great. I don't know who it's going to be. Is it going to be Eno? Is it going to be Darrell Williams? Who knows? There's something to be said about Eno Benjamin. Like, oh, he's not very good, whatever. But he's hung around there for 3 years now. Like, they clearly like him. They clearly think he's good enough to be on this team. So there's something to be said about that. If I'm picking a guy in that range. If I'm picking a handcuff for James Conner, it would be Eno Benjamin, because like I said, he's been there for a while. He knows the offense, and I just don't think Darrell Williams is that good.
And he's kind of a nice player, wasn't he? A nice prospect, Benjamin.
Benjamin. He was okay as a prospect. He was fun watch at Arizona State, but didn't test great. The size isn't awesome, and the argument against him is, he's been in Arizona for a couple of years and has barely gotten the ball.
Sure.
So why didn't that happen? Why did they? Then, last year it was paying a little bit for James Conner, but then after that happened, they were like, well, we're going to give him a whole bunch of money to come back and be the feature guy here. I don't know who the guy is between Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams behind him. I haven't seen anything about an injury for Darrell Williams to explain why he wouldn't have played in the preseason game. So to me, that seems iffy in terms of the outlook for Eno Benjamin. My approach to these two is just to be out on both, because I think it's probably closer to Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman in Carolina, where there is no straight handcuff to James Conner. And I do think James Conner is going to work like a workhorse here. Maybe they ease up on it a little bit, but we've also heard recently how the Colts don't want Jonathan Taylor to have the ball as much as he did last year. I think that would be the level of easing up on James Conner. Money tells me that Arizona is going to lean heavily on Conner, and he's going well into round 3 in drafts still. So I expect the workload of a first round level back. So I think there's much more upside than there is risk on Conner at where he's going.
Completely agree. I love round 3. I love all the different ways you can go in round 3. And Conner's one of those running backs where it's like, man, I can start 2 receivers and be super comfortable getting a guy like Conner. I like Breece Hall, some other players in there.
All right, let's talk about some rookie running backs and what we think we're seeing here through some of the preseason. Just 3 games, and most teams have only played 1 week 2 in the preseason coming up here starting on Thursday night. Kenneth Walker. So not only with Seattle, Matt, with Walker, we've got concerns if you're sort of invested in him on Walker versus Travis Homer, Walker versus DJ Dallas. Those are familiar names who've been annoying, to fantasy players before. Now Walker's hurt.
Yeah.
And that could be an injury. It sounds like if it's a core muscle injury that could keep him out. What does it add up to?
Yeah, Pete Carroll called it a hernia kind of situation. I mean, those seem like they generally end in surgery, and it hasn't been as serious a surgery lately. It could put him back early in the regular season, but that's a pretty big chunk of time to miss, with Rashad Penny likely coming back from the injury that's had him out of some training camp practices. I would have to think that it pushes Walker at least behind them. And then the worrisome thing was, with Penny out for that preseason opener, we did see Travis Homer worked in a lot. It would have been the perfect time to, I don't know if showcase is the word, but give Kenneth Walker all of those touches to see what he looks like on pass plays and as a runner. And even there, they were like, no, we're going to work in Travis Homer as well. Who knows if they didn't want to overwork him. Overall, I haven't been really in on the Seattle running backs in the range where they're going, which is not super early, but it's still just a range where I like other things better. And this is certainly not changing that. I think the best case for me is that Rashad Penny makes it back soon and he gets more attractive to me, but Kenneth Walker's probably not going to be in my draft plans.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker. This is interesting. I mean, how many times do you see situations like this where a player gets hurt, or a rookie specifically, and he's just a 0 for 3/4 of the season. So if he does have that surgery and he is out the first 4 games or so, his draft stock is going to plummet, and that kind of where I would be a little bit more interested in him, knowing that okay, I'm going to draft him later on, I'm going to stash him because there's I'm not using the sports injury predictor data here from DraftSharks.com, but there is a 0% chance Rashad Penny plays 17 games. So if you can get lucky and time that right, where you do have Kenneth Walker late and you do stash him, and then Penny misses the games after Walker's back and healthy, weeks 13, 14, 15, something like that. I mean, that could be an absolute smash. Normally, I would love a player like Penny, like, okay, this guy's going to get all the workload now, so now we can safely draft him where he belongs. The problem is the injury history again. The offense is going to be terrible. The offensive line is terrible. The coaching staff is terrible. So do I want to, like, if he's going to start going in like the 5th round, no, you don't think he will?
No, if he does, I'm totally out on him.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, because if they announce that Kenneth Walker's out for 6 weeks, then he's going like the 9th round now. Rashad Penny, he's gonna fly way up. And
I think
I
get it.
I think he could stop in the 7th though, because there are plenty of running backs still available there. People are probably not going to take Penny ahead of Tony Pollard, for example, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I could see him stopping in the 7th, and I'd be in on Rashad Penny in the 7th.
I think he goes ahead of Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Gibson for sure.
Really?
Gibson's falling. I do. I mean, the end of the season last year, he was was the RB1 the last 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, he was a monster. So again, and again, this is a situation now that's kind of progressing, and we're just making hypotheticals, like if he does get the surgery. But is this a handcuff situation where if Penny goes in the right range, and then Kenneth Walker goes low enough where you can get them both, and you're kind of locked into that, because you would never do that if they're both going in the 8th and 9th. But if we're talking 6th and 15th, that might be worth it.
Yeah, Penny, I think, was on the Best Ball Mania winner with Amon-Ra, that 51-29 game in the finals. He was, if you look at the main event winners, the Go Bills, well, they're both named Go Bills, the Best Ball, Liam's team.
They
Liam Murphy.
cut him, right?
They cut him, right. He's on that.
What a team.
He's in that draft, Rashad Penny, and you see the draft board who won this thing last year, but they didn't keep Rashad Penny all the way.
Sure.
But he was drafted there.
Talk about running pure.
Yeah. We had him in the bare knuckle, Penny, that helped us to fifth.
Chad Schroeder had him in the Draft Sharks Invitational, I remember, because I couldn't catch him.
Right.
I'm like, I definitely caught up to Chad this week. I look at his rush. I'm like, he's Rashad Penny? Are you kidding me?
It was his last sort of pedal down moment in that thing. He's just a little bit ahead of you all year, and then, all right, now I'm playing this card.
Sick.
Interesting how you have the Bills, the Seahawks, and the Patriots, 2 running backs. They're all just like right next to each other, and they're all in round 8. You have there are a couple other guys too, Patterson, but Singletary, Cook,
I know,
Stevenson, Harris. Penny and Walker, but the Walker injury will change that a little bit, especially if it's long term. Rashad White in Tampa. So rookie running back plays behind Gio Bernard, who I think was injured in that game, and Keyshawn Vaughn. Matt, is that it can be either. Like, is that a sign of something, or is that just, you're a rookie? So we're gonna do this.
I think for this and for the next few running back situations, all these rookies that we're going to talk about, specific context is important. And I think for Rashad White, it's not surprising. It's going to be something to continue watching. I'm not saying that I will move Rashad White down further from where I have him, but I'm also not. I haven't been at any point comfortable saying he is definitely the second running back. He is clearly the Leonard Fournette backup / handcuff, because Gio Bernard's been in the league for a long time. And yeah, he's not an exciting fantasy player at this point, but he's a veteran. He got re-signed this offseason by the team. Clearly, they like him. They have him around. They feel comfy with him in the game. Keyshawn Vaughn is in his third year with the team. Another guy that none of us is excited about, but he's in his third year with the team. He got some work with the Bucs last year, actually got onto the field finally. So there is a chance that the Bucs are like, we feel pretty good about these two vets. They're not going to get Tom Brady killed. We know what they can do. Sure, Rashad White is the high upside guy, but we're going to mix all those guys together. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rashad White starts slowly. I would love, though, for the sake of White's upside, to see him work ahead of these guys at some point during the preseason.
Yeah, same here. I want to see some signs of life out of him for sure. It's hard because I almost feel like the Tampa Bay running back is like the nuts for, like, if you have the starter there and you're good, like, because Leonard Fournette isn't even that good, and he's able to just grind out points every week, massive points. So if there was an injury to Fournette, but we don't know, because Tom Brady might hate Rashad White's game. He might not trust his blocking. He might run the routes incorrectly. We don't know that information. So like Matt said, we at least want to see him. Let's see if he's explosive. Let's see if he looks good. Let's see if he is picking up the offense. Let's get a little bit more positive coach speak out of there on a guy like Rashad White. Because if not, he's going right now in the 9th round. There are probably some other running backs that we like a little bit better there, and we'll talk about one soon.
I wonder if he's even met Brady.
Right,
Brady's not even there. Right. Like, what can you
Brady hates
do?
Him so much, he's taking a vacation from training camp to get away from him.
Forget it, kid.
Who knows where that's headed? Like, he's not even there. So there's no experience between these two guys happening right now.
And in lots of other situations, I would be just say I'm avoiding this situation because I don't know what it's going to look like with Rashad White versus these two vets. But like you said, Adam, it's the Bucs backfield. Whoever's back there is going to score some points. And Leonard Fournette's got some pretty serious injury history behind him. So you were talking about with Rashad Penny.
Right.
I would bet money that Leonard Fournette does not start every game this year. So that's why I remain interested in Rashad White. He's still the guy that I would take because he's the upside guy. But I'm not over-investing. I'm not saying, it's definitely Rashad White as the RB2 here.
Chargers. So when I wrote a fantasy column for WGR550.com last week, I used Isaiah Spiller as an example of a great late round pick. You sort of get your team right through the first half of the draft, and then you get, a little bit more insurance, the Robert Woods types, a little bit of safer value, and then you get to the point where, like, all right, who's somebody that's in prime real estate if one thing happens, an Eckler injury? You got to love the offense. But according to Daniel Popper of The Athletic, Joshua Kelly, in his opinion, is the leader right now to be right behind Eckler. You have Larry Roundtree there as well. Adam Spiller, like, are you? I don't know if you were like really into him, but I think you like the logic there, probably. But are you sort of worried, I guess, now?
I love the logic there. Was this an interview that you guys did with him, Matt?
Mm-mm.
Or no? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get to check why he thinks that. If it's something that he's heard from coaches or heard from sources.
Probably
fine.
watching how they work in practice, I would imagine.
Yeah. More impressive so far, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
And reps even.
Reps and who they're running with. Yeah, exactly. So this is different than a player not suiting up for a preseason game, or this is, because that's speculation. This, if he's actually getting less run consistently, at least it says something about, Kelly is maybe he's gotten better. Kelly wasn't bad last year. But this is a situation that I do want to be in. I mean, the problem is they didn't get into they didn't give the role to any specific person when.
Yeah, but it's because those guys didn't earn it. I mean, Joshua Kelly, I think this is his third year now.
Third year,
and he hasn't earned that spot.
He seems for me like somebody who sort of choked in that role.
Yeah,
like a couple years ago, I liked him I like the idea of Kelly. Everybody 2 years ago, everybody wanted to have a compliment to Eckler because Melvin Gordon had left, and Eckler's not going to play all the time, but he kind of did, and then he had 20 touchdowns. Last year.
Yeah. Well, my point kind of there was that Spiller, if he's not running ahead of Joshua Kelly, like what does that say? Like I didn't think Kelly was that bad, but even if he's as bad as you guys say, it makes it even worse for Spiller. You almost want him to be the clear guy now. He hasn't dropped a ton since. I think he's still going in the 11th round in these FFPC drafts. So I'm okay with Spiller. 10th, 11th round. I'm okay with him again in the right build because that offense is really, really good. They're going to be in shootouts. But Eckler, I'm assuming Spiller is a 0 while Eckler's on the field, while Eckler's healthy. Sorry. So I don't see any standalone value for Spiller.
For that, I'd really want to hear some news, before the season starts to think that he's going to have a role.
Same with Rashad White. I don't think he has standalone value either.
I think even more. I agree with you even more on him, on White than Spiller. 4th round, Spiller it's right. It's like sort of just low enough. Day 3, just low enough where you wouldn't want to assume anything, right? If he's a day 2 pick, well, the Chargers have made a significant investment here. They're going to try. They're going to give him a shot. I don't know if that applies in round 4.
I think the reason that we're even talking about Isaiah Spiller right now is because people, meaning fantasy drafters in general, started out with overvaluing Isaiah Spiller. He had an excellent start production-wise at Texas A&M, or is it Texas A&M? Yeah, Texas A&M. But even before he left there, he was losing touches to a younger teammate, and I know it was a speedy running back, and they were working him in. But losing touches in the latter stages of your college career, to me, is a red flag. Then we had the really poor testing with Spiller. Then we had the 4th round draft capital kind of reinforcing that he's a limited talent. So when we stack all that with this, maybe Joshua Kelly is starting over him after 2 disappointing years with the Chargers. I'm not that interested in Spiller. He's in a range where if you're saying I'm buying the RB2 for the Chargers and I think that's him, that's fine. I think I'm less willing to bet on Spiller there than I am Rashad White in the same range of drafts because I think Rashad White is a better player. The Bucs drafted Rashad White higher, and I think that the competition, there's more of a gap between White and his Bucs competition than there is between Spiller and his Chargers competition, just from a talent standpoint, I think.
One more rookie, Dameon Pierce. Everybody was excited about Dameon Pierce. Adam on the drive home from Canton on Sunday with Louie. We're all watching Dameon Pierce highlights. I was driving, but I'd already seen them. Look good. Now you have Mack and Agumbawale there who were in the game. Rex Burkhead was not. I mean, Pierce just makes sense. If he's good, then I would think there's no reason why he wouldn't get a real shot there. And he could even be 3 downs, this player. So it's probably a terrible team. But if he gets 3 downs, he's way underpriced now.
Yeah, well, he was underpriced. Let's see. I mean,
last week,
right? Last week, then 3 days ago. I get it. He looked really, really good. He can absolutely be a 3-down back. That he has that in his skill set. Now you're hearing all the stuff. Well, not now, but people who have been doing this for a while. He went to Florida, right? The coaching staff there, you just keep hearing how inept they were and how they played favorites with players, and he's actually a really talented player. And then he comes here, and I know it's a bad team, but Marlon Mack isn't some 3rd down scat back. Agumbawale isn't some he doesn't have some 3rd down role secured. Let's say worst case scenario, he starts the season as the pass catching back and then moves into a bigger role. I mean, Pierce looked really good. The offensive line is getting better. Might be an undervalued offensive line. I like Dameon Pierce. It's just, to me, how high is he going to go? Right now, he's going at the 9-10 turn in these FFPC main events. That's kind of a sweet spot for me because, again, you're taking him in there with the Kenny Gainwells, the Isaiah Spillers, the Rashad Whites. I like him over those guys because I think he could be the day 1 starter. So, and probably should be. So he's a guy I like there, but I could see him creeping up draft boards too.
And we have Pep Hamilton, the OC for the Texans, since calling him a guy who can create his own yards. So they were impressed with what he's doing. There's talk from beat writers about how he could quickly take the lead of that backfield. For me, the real question here was where the opportunities are going to go in Houston. So now that you can see, I talked about context. It's Marlon Mack, it's Dario Agumbawale, it's Rex Burkhead. It's Dameon Pierce is the most talented player currently in the Houston backfield. So in this range of guys, if he's going near Isaiah Spiller and Rachaad White, it's easily Pierce for me because his even early range of outcomes could be leading that backfield very soon.
Absolutely. 1 year, $2 million for Mac.
Right.
Like there's not much. I'm trying to, in my mind, make a comparison with James Robinson with Pierce. Now, Robinson was undrafted, but like, okay, he's good. There's not much of an investment. Pierce is more. And then
Fournette gets moved.
Gets cut.
Yeah.
And like, okay, Ogumbawale might have been one of the other guys.
He was.
Armstead.
Yeah.
Nebraska. Zigbo.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Well, those are some names right there.
That's right. That's right.
And then it was like, okay, well, I have this. He's not a good team, but played all the time. And how did that go? What did he rank? Top 10?
Oh, yeah.
That year?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Running back 37 hasn't moved that much for me looking at Fantasy Mojo in the main event.
And he's a guy, I know we like to talk about the main event, but he's a guy in home leagues that you're going to get. Like Pierce, you could get so late.
That's where he is an underdog right now, too. RB37, exactly. Yeah. So I'm in there. And I've been like, oh, let's wait and see on Pierce. But at that price, I'm definitely in at this point.
Quick thoughts on Atlanta. Running back 36 is Cordero Patterson, who could also be, like, he's shown to be good enough for it. Like in a major role there. That is how they're talking. Tyler Algier has been the rookie people want for that team, and he was the 5th running back in the game.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you guys?
Context, Kadri Allison, Damian Williams, Caleb Huntley, Avery Williams were the guys ahead of him.
Avery Williams.
If Tyler Algier doesn't climb that depth chart by week 1, then he's going in a range where you can just drop him and say, all right, it's not going to be this year. He's a 5th-round pick. I'm not missing a whole lot. It's a bad offense. But that depth chart, I absolutely think that there is a good chance that Tyler Algier climbs it before week 1 and gets a big role. And like I said, he's going late enough that it doesn't really matter. I agree, though, that this is all an argument in favor of Cordero Patterson. I think the Falcons want to run him less and have him work more like, I don't know, Chase Edmonds than the lead ball carrier, but they might have to hand him the ball more than they want to. So I think it's all a strong case for taking Cordero Patterson at cost, getting him as your RB3. Maybe you got somebody that you start right away in PPR leagues.
Yeah, this is a Cordero Patterson tweet, right? That's what this is. I mean, he's Algier. Yeah, I don't think it matters. I mean, it's just interesting. Like if you were going to run him as the 5th running back, but they have him ranked higher, then why would you just not even play him? Like why would you run him in the 4th? You know, so.
I mean, you got to get the experience, and I'm sure that he has growing to do. And it makes sense to make the rookies earn it. I mean, all these guys have been in the league longer, so I have no problem with running a 5th-round pick with the 4th team offense because you want to get him the hits, you want to get him the carries, you want to get him opportunities on field. I think that we'll probably see him climb as we move through the preseason.
This will be a big week.
This will be a big week, and the Falcons kind of have a sneaky offense, man. You get Cordero playing most of the offense. If it's really going to go through him at running back, he can catch, he can run. We got Pitts, we got London. Sorry. I think he'd be sneaky good in a division. I think you're doing
shots now when you say archetype.
Sneaky. I mean, we're talking a division that doesn't have great defenses. You know, I think they could. They're fine at value, but I just. Get me thinking about Cordero Patterson with a couple other weapons out there. Sounds good because they had nothing out there last year. You know, it was Kyle Pitts playing receiver. Now he's going to be at tight end.
So far, he's been inside. Pitts,
right?
Good sign on that one.
So nice.
Let's go through a few injuries just quickly. I'll name a couple players or a few, and you tell me what, if anything, the injury news on them means. Can we start with the one that happened today?
Sure.
I don't think they know.
What happened
Friends.
today?
Mecole Hardman.
I did see that one pop up.
Oh,
carted off left leg.
Oh.
We don't know anything more.
It's great for Sky Moore.
Hopefully he's okay. But Sky Moore, right?
Yeah. I was already out on Mecole Hardman, so it doesn't really affect me there.
Absolutely.
But it creates that path for Sky Moore.
Are we still not allowed to get excited over injuries? Is that a thing? Because
don't victory lap them.
You can.
We have to talk about the upside.
Excitement because it just takes away. Personally, I just took Juju and MVS in a main with Mahomes, so I don't hate that. But yeah, I wasn't drafting Hardman at all.
Yeah, you can get excited about injuries. Just don't expect me to.
That's perfect.
Doesn't feel right. Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson in the Rams. Soft tissue. That's not great, but it's pretty vague.
Isn't all tissue soft?
It's pretty vague. The Rams have traded for running backs. That was my first reaction when I heard this. Maybe was it last week with the Rams running backs, but they don't have so many draft picks left. If they haven't traded for somebody within 3 weeks of the opener, I don't know if that's the right timeline for this point. Maybe disagree, but then they might think one or both of those guys will be fine.
What's a hard tissue?
I was just going to ask, where in your body is the hard tissue?
The tissues in hotels
Okay, yeah, that's
are hard
right.
because
That's right.
you use them and
Single
they scratch
ply,
your nose.
It's gross.
Yeah.
So I was on Shark Bites this morning, checking out
As you should
checking
be.
out the Cam Akers injury. It sounds like it's not that bad. I really want to love Cam Akers so much. Like all the reports coming out is that McVay loves the run game when Akers is in there. I want to, and I see it. Like I totally see a path where he's the guy and he's smashing, and Henderson is the clear number 2. I see that happening, but every time I want to get in on him, there's always some sort of soft tissue, or he'll speak or the coach will speak highly of Darrell Henderson. I have much more Darrell Henderson than I do Akers, because again, if Akers misses a couple games, Henderson proved that he could be a top 5 running back fantasy wise. So I want to be in on Akers. The injury, this thing doesn't scare me anymore. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, he's at the end of round 4 on Underdog right now.
Yeah.
It's only going to slip a little further as long as he's off the field. And we know that the Rams play it smart / cautious with these injuries. So I can't say I'm totally comfy, but if I've started my draft with 2 to 3 receivers and then I'm looking at Cam Akers like early in round 5, I'm like, yeah, I don't care. If he gets hurt from there, it's not going to scuttle my season. And if he is healthy from there, it could make my season.
Drake London, knee injury in the preseason, may miss a little bit of time, but not considered major. Tournaments, no change for me. You like the Atlanta offense. You still want to invest
Sneaky
in him
good.
a little bit, right? I mean, not a big deal fantasy-wise.
No, I mean, if the injury didn't look that bad, they said it wasn't that bad. He's going in round 7 of these mains. I'll take him there for sure. It doesn't adjust my rankings.
Helps the price, and he's got no Racy McMath keeping him off the field.
Right.
So,
Oh, racy.
Miles Sanders.
awful. He is already tied.
Awful.
Yeah, he was tied with Dalvin Cook for the lead in our injury guide projections, and not a lead that you want to have as the leader
Interesting.
for most likely to get hurt in season among running backs. And again, I mentioned it before. He is up there despite not having, 250 projected carries and 50 plus projected receptions. He's there with a projection that has him down at like RB 27 in our rankings. So we already knew that the injuries were a risk with him. Hamstring is one of the worst that you can have just because it can be nagging, can be recurring. And we already have Kenneth Gainwell there challenging for opportunities. So for me, like this week, I'm not interested in drafting Miles Sanders at all, and I'm very interested in drafting Kenneth Gainwell.
I love to hear that. Just to Kenneth Campbell and a main. I think I have one share of Miles Sanders, and it was in the Draft Sharks Invitational. I think as my RB3.
What happened?
And I don't know. A panic pick. But yeah, I'm out on Miles. Miles Sanders said, "Don't draft Miles Sanders." Once I heard that like a month ago, I'm like, good. I wasn't gonna draft you anyways. So.
Nick Sirianni listened to that and started wearing a Kenneth Gainwell shirt. To
That's
press
right.
conferences.
Zach Wilson, a big injury. Sounds like it might not be a super long time before he's back, but it also seems like to me he's not the favorite to start week 1. And how about the Garrett Wilson quote
love
about
it.
Flacco? He throws a more receiver-friendly
Yeah.
pass.
That's right.
Wow. What is that? What are you really saying? I mean, he's not getting us killed out here.
Right.
So, I mean, Zach Wilson takes a tumble in ADP, especially when you thought he was going to be out a long time. He was a very late round pick anyway, but I'm not any lower on any Jet receivers.
Somebody get Jeff Galooly on the phone and give Zach Wilson a bone bruise on the other knee so we can
right.
have these receivers with a more receiver-friendly ball from Joe Flacco for
Jeff
longer.
Galooly reference.
I don't know. I don't know who Jeff Galooly is. but
Tanya Harding.
I would
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez, Louise. Why me? Why
Jeff
me?
Galooly. I can't stop saying it.
Jeff Galooly.
Matthew Stafford. You had something on the Jets. Sorry,
No, nothing. Zach Wilson
I'm
stinks.
trying to get us in by the deadline here.
Do it.
Stafford, was it ever anything?
It's something.
It's something. Yeah, we talked about this. What good vibes, bad vibes last week. If it was really that bad, they wouldn't even be playing him. Back to full practice to start this week. Wonderful. I was starting to get a little nervous about the weapons around him, but he's back. Everything's good to go.
Bills -2.5. We talked about this line before. I reached out to a friend in that game last night. I'm like, is this interesting? The Bills are -2.5 at the Rams. If the Bills were home for this game, would they be an 8-point favorite? Like, would you give 8 points if the Rams were at the Bills? Like, it's just where are we going here? And his opinion was it's not going to 3.
Wow.
2.5 is not good. It is Stafford. And maybe even a little bit Akers, but it is Stafford. So if reports get, no more bad news on him by the opener, that line probably moves the other way. And so if you're into betting, you might want to take the Rams now and then get the Bills closer to the kickoff at a better price.
All I know is every time I hear or see good vibes, bad vibes, I almost start singing Led Zeppelin.
Uh-huh. All right, so
I don't get the reference either.
who's Led Zeppelin?
How
That's
young
funny.
are you guys?
I'm just not into Led Zeppelin.
Can't have a fantasy podcast right now without these names: Isaiah Pacheco, George Pickens, Romeo Doubs. Which of the three, Matt, is like the most exciting for you?
I guess most exciting would have to be Romeo Doubs because he has the best quarterback. Well, not the best quarterback among these three. He has the better quarterback than George Pickens has. I don't know if he has as much roll upside as George Pickens has. So that's the holdup. And then obviously the question is, all three of these guys are climbing. How high do they have to climb before they're out of draft plans? And I have definitely seen all three of these guys go at points in individual drafts where it's like, oh crap, I guess I'm not going to get them as much as I hoped.
Yeah, that's the point. So like they're all going like the same range, and it's like you can't get everybody right. So Pickens to me, I've loved Pickens since the moment I laid eyes on him. So yeah, Pickens excites me a lot. But I've heard of that song.
He knows that.
But Pacheco might be fool's gold. He might be worth something. So, these guys play different positions. Doubs is the guy that I don't really have a lot of, and I'm fine with not having a lot of him. I mean, he doesn't have a great talent profile coming out of college, all that stuff. There's so many things that could happen there. Alan Lazard, Christian Watson. So to me, it's between Pacheco and Pickens. Those guys you can get both of those guys if you need a running back. Pacheco, but again, be prepared to cut him because it might just be nothing.
They will go close together sometimes, though. Round 10.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. That's right.
I saw Pacheco round 6 last night in the main event.
That's crazy.
Pickens for me is the easy answer here. Doubs, fine. I'm curious. Right.
Yeah.
Can a rookie?
Yeah.
You have Randall Cobb on that team, Lazard, guys that Rodgers knows so well. Can a rookie bust through that? If it's anybody, it's Doubs. Sammy Watkins, even if you want him there. Pacheco, I think, is really cool, and there's so many different ways Kansas City can play out. I love what I know about the player, talent-wise, physically, but it's not really a gamble I'm into at mid-rounds. Pickens, though, is good. He is good. So you have competition in Pittsburgh, and you have quarterback questions, but, bet on talent.
Well, that's the thing is you bet on talent, but there's no quarterback talent there, and they just extended Deontay Johnson. And there is opportunity that comes into play. So even if George Pickens passes Chase Claypool immediately, we could still be talking about him even as the number 2 wide receiver in an offense where Deontay Johnson's commanding 25%. So for me, the only real way to play any of these three wrong is to say, I'm not leaving my draft without him. These all three need to be guys that you're okay with losing to somebody else, I think. Because Adam just talked about where they're going. It's only going to get crazier because George Pickens is going to have more preseason highlights. He's going to be in the single-digit rounds before we're done with draft season, especially when we're talking about big tournament drafts. We're talking about home leagues where everybody wants to get their guy. There are going to be lots of people thinking George Pickens is my guy. I'm not going to miss him, and that's what pushes a player too early.
Yeah, and Pickens is just the thing about him is there's just very few places he could have gone that were worse than this for him. We're talking a team loaded with talent at all the receiving positions and a quarterback that probably isn't very good. I would rather have him on a team with
Green Bay,
where one or the other. Right, Green Bay. I'm okay with him being on a team with a bad quarterback, and I'm okay with him being buried on a team with a good quarterback, but he has both. So that's the problem. You got to be prepared for Pickens to not hit, or it's going to be inconsistent. He's going to score. He's going to have big games. It's just when are you going to start him? He's better for best ball. Better in best ball.
Kind of like Claypool 2 years ago. You're describing.
Yeah, but they got the thing about Claypool is they got him involved in the run game. He was taking reverses from the 1 yard line and scoring. Then they stopped doing that last year. So I don't know. We'll see. But all the quarterbacks seem to trust him deep. The deep ball is back in the Pittsburgh offense, so maybe he's there. He's definitely better. He's better than
the other thing about Claypool is if you had him that year, you probably didn't start him
That's
for that
what I'm
4
saying.
touchdown game, and then you probably did start him after that and never matched that production. He had like another game that was big. he had maybe one or two others that were pretty good, and otherwise he was just a guy. So,
Right.
yeah, love that on a best ball roster. It could be frustrating in a lineup setting league.
Time to wrap this up. Draft Sharks Insiders. We still have some available.
Oh yeah,
Subscriptions are still available.
Come on,
We
board.
haven't sold out.
We will make room for you. I'll personally elbow people over to let you in the door.
Even in the Rock Vox era, we still have not sold out every subscription. Well, I'd love to have you become an insider and get more of Matt and Jared's work and Adam's. And we'll talk again next Wednesday. Hopefully Jared's feeling better and will join us here. Thanks for watching and listening today. And we'll see you in the drafts.
We'll be there.
Later.